My name is Jay. I'm the owner of 923 Fabrics and Crafts. Today, we're going to do a quick tutorial on how to finger crochet a scarf. To get started, you're going to need some yarn. There are a variety of yarns that you can use to make beautiful, warm winter scarves. Some of the items or some of the yarns that I recommend would be a chunky like this, or maybe a fuzzy chenille. You can even use something as fun as a loopy yarn. Whatever you choose, you'll be able to create something fun, colorful, and super warm so you'll be ready for the winter weather. Let's get started by creating a simple loop. We can always tie off or cut off this end once we are done with our scarf, but let's go with this little loop for now. All right, put that loop around your hand, and to make a chain stitch in hand or finger crochet, you're simply going to grab the yarn and pull it through the loop, and then put the new loop on your hand. So I call it finger crochet because I never quite put it back on my wrist. I'll just kind of let it rest across my hand. So I'll grab the next loop and pull it through, and you are now creating your first chain stitch. You want to continue this process for about 20-25 stitches. Reach through, grab a loop. Reach through and grab a loop. As you go along, you're going to create a beautiful chain. Don't make your chain too tight, otherwise your scarf will be too stiff. After you've completed your chain, you should have something that looks similar to this. Making sure that your loops are not too tight, keep them nice and loose, otherwise your scarf will be too stiff. Okay, so let's go back. Now we're going to do our next row. One rule that you must always follow when you're starting another row is always add an extra chain. So we're going to go reach through and pull up another loop, and now we're ready to start our next row. Now I'm right-handed. This is my right hand. I am going to reach into the previous loop and pull up a loop. Now I have two loops on my hand, my right hand. I'm going to take a loop, hand my right hand with my left, a loop, and pull it through. That is my first single crochet stitch. Now I'm going to go into the next hole, which is right here, right there. Go in there, reach in, grab a loop, and then I'm going to yarn over and pull it through. Now I have two single crochet stitches. A single crochet is identified by this kind of double loop feeding into a double loop. So let's continue on to the next one. I'm going to reach into the next loop, and also having your yarn on the right side of your work helps. So I'm going to reach into that loop and pull up a loop. I have two, reach, and then I'm going to feed a loop through. And that gives me that double loop kind of locking in. Go into my next one, and I'm going to pull up a loop and then go through two. Now I'm going to switch this over for left-handed people. Okay, so I'm just going to turn the work around and with my left hand, and for some reason I do this a little bit smoother with my left hand even though I'm right-handed, but I'm going to go ahead and show you guys. I'm going to reach into the loop and pull a loop through. I have two on my hand. I'm going to take the yarn and pull it through both loops. Okay, here's the next one. Go into the hole and pull up yarn. Now I have two. I'm going to pull the yarn through 2 loops. One more time. Go into the loop and pull up one. I have 2 on my hand. Grab the yarn and pull it through 2. You want to continue that all the way across your chain stitch. Continue on and I'll catch you at the end. When you get to the end of the row, you should be able to look back and see a series of these looped stitches across the top of your work. See how each loop feeds into one another. Those are the tops of your single crochet stitches, okay? Goes all the way across. That's important to remember that when you're talking about the anatomy of a single crochet or any crochet stitch, the top of the crocheted stitch has two loops to it. So when you're going back to work on your piece and going back the other way, you need to make sure that you go under both loops. So your hole that you go into will always go under both loops. If you go under one instead of going under two, it's a different type of stitch and it will create a ribbed look along your work. We can talk about that another time. For the purposes of this project, you want to make sure that you go under both of your single crochet loops, okay? So make sure that you're looking back over the top of your work and that you can identify those 2 loops that kind of interlock along the top. Okay, if you recall at the beginning of the previous row, one of the rules I said is always add an extra chain stitch at the beginning of the next row. So we're going to go ahead and reach in, pull a loop through, and that's a chain. Okay, now turn your work around. So now you're working back the other way. Okay, get your yarn situated and get yourself positioned. Put your hand in your loop, and now we're going to work back. We're going to work another set of single crochets along the single crochets that we just created. So you're going to reach under your first set of loops into your first single crochet, and I'm going to pull up a loop. Now I have 2. Make sure you're nice and loose. Grab some yarn and pull it through. All right, go into my next set of loops. Grab some yarn. I have 2 on my hand. Grab the yarn and pull it through. And you're going to continue on. Go under 2 loops, pull up, and then pull your yarn through. One more time. Go under. I'm under 2 loops. I'm grabbing my yarn. I have 2 loops here, and then I'm going to pull through. Now I'm going to flip this around for my left-handed folks. Put my left hand in, flip it over. So if you're left-handed, your loops still look the same. The loops don't change the way they look just because they're left-handed, right? Here's our single crochet, right? It has 2 loops. I'm going to reach in, pull up a loop, and then pull a loop through. Reach in, pull up a loop, and then feed the yarn through. And you're going to continue this across till you get to the end. We're just doing a single crochet, nice and loose. And you'll get faster at it. All right, keep going till you get to the end, and I'll see you there. When you get to the end of the second row, now it's time to evaluate, do you have enough yarn to make another row? Now, in my case, I know that I only have a little bit of yarn left. I can make a decision to tie on another skein of the same colorway and continue on back and forth finishing my work or making it larger, or I can decide that I am satisfied with the thickness of this particular scarf. And I think I'm going to stop here. I'm going to show you how to tie it off when you reach the end, and it's super easy. So you have your loop on the end. all you're going to do is take the end of your yarn and pull it all the way through. So I'm going to pull my end out so I'm not just leaving a loop, and then I'm going to pull it tight, and that's the end. Now, the next question is, what do you do with this extra? So now you're going to do a process called weaving in your ends. Now, all of these techniques that I'm showing you are done with crochet needles, but we've done this project with our hands. So the concepts are exactly the same. What I recommend you do when you are weaving in ends is give yourself enough of a leeway, right? Enough of the yarn that as you weave in, it's not going to stick out and look all funky. So we're going to give ourselves a good 12 inches worth of yarn, and we're going to cut it off, right? Just like that. So we drop that, and this is what's left. We have this tail. The easiest way to weave in is to just pull it back through some of the loops that are already existing in your work. So you're just weaving in the end. It doesn't matter, there's no rhyme or reason. You're just kind of wrapping it around into the colors, into the different stitches, and eventually you'll get to the end. And as you can see, as you're weaving it in, no one can tell the difference, right? Because you are weaving in that end. So I'm just finding a loop and tucking it under, and then finding another loop, and I'm working back through my scarf as I go along. And if you pull it, it just kind of keeps weaving in, and you can find some of your tighter stitches to tuck it under. And all you're doing is tucking that end under different sections of your scarf until you kind of get to the end and you find a nice tight spot there to tuck that one into. And then if you get to a point where you feel like, okay, I've tucked it enough, you go back and clip it again, nice and close. And then when you stretch it, it will disappear into your scarf. And you are all done. Isn't that beautiful? Great job. So there you have it. Quick, easy, and super fun. When you get good at this, you'll be knocking out these scarves by the hundreds. Super fast, super warm, and really, really stylish. I hope you enjoyed this tutorial. I look forward to sharing crafting with you again. I can't wait to see what you create. Let us know in the comments. We'll see you again soon.